Hi, guys. Cecile Edwards here of the Mommy Matters podcast. I have to tell you, if you have not heard about Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Did I tell you that you can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership? It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download your Anchor app or go to Anchor FM, anchor.fm to get started. You will not be dissatisfied. Welcome to the Mommy Matters podcast, where Mommy Matters is a double entendre that states and declares that mommies matter, where we have conversations surrounding mommy matters, from conception to pregnancy to postpartum, mother and father wounds, dating, mindfulness and self-care, spirituality, parenting, discipline, legislation, money, and so much more. It is my hope and my prayer that the information that you gather here serves as a blueprint for generational and individual ascension. Enjoy. All right, welcome to the Mommy Matters podcast, where we discuss all things mommy, intergenerational healing, self-care, from taking care of your children to taking care of yourself, all of those things that are important for our lives and for better future generations. So today I'm excited because we have a special guest, and I'm a very on the fly person. So when I see somebody that I want to talk to or I want to have a conversation with, I'm that person that just rolls up on people and just start talking to them. And it never fails me that it's always a person that I need to talk to. So it works out. So, so today is episode 3 of the Mommy Matters podcast, and I'm excited again to have a guest, Mrs. Ann Dillard. And I'm going to let her introduce herself because her work is phenomenal. Everything that she does is there's very few people that I have seen doing the same work, but it's so critical and integral to our ability to, one, parent well, two, to heal ourselves in order to do that parenting well, and to heal our communities and our families, et cetera, to do that deep work that is required. So I'm going to stop talking for 3 seconds or 3 minutes, I should say, and allow Ann to introduce herself and talk about her work. And then we'll get into the interview. Ann?
Hey, good morning, Cecile. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, and congratulations. This is amazing. I am Ann Dillard. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm licensed in 2 states, Minnesota and in Georgia. And my primary focus is working with teens. So I'm a teen coach and I'm a teen therapist, predominantly girls. And I've worked for many years in the middle school setting, offering therapy for girls. But one of the things that I've realized along the way is that when I serve my clients who are young girls, I can't serve them unless I'm also serving their families. And usually in that instance, it means working with their moms as well. And so I'm just really, really excited for the opportunity to travel worldwide, to work with young women, to help instill hope and to heal relationships. So I'm glad to be here and have this conversation with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And if you haven't noticed by now, the title of our podcast today is Healing Mother-Daughter Relationships. One of the reasons why, Mommy Evolve was started and why I even got into this work was because I noticed through my own process, and I was an adult woman, through my own process, that one of the things that I could not get over the hump with in my healing process, I was doing all of the things that they say you should do, right, in healing. And one of the things the hump that I could not get over was my relationship with my mother, and reconciling that in my mind and in my spirit and in my understanding of the world, right? So everyone was telling me, you have to give people boundaries, but then I needed to give my mother boundaries, and I couldn't do that because I'm like, but she's my mom, I shouldn't have to give her boundaries. Right. And so I love that you said that, in healing, when you're dealing with teenage girls, of course, first of all, they're teenagers. And I know that, in some communities, in our community, the Black community particularly, we like for our children to be grown very quickly. But the truth of the matter is that they are not grown even at 18. um, what they look like, how they develop, has to do with a lot of other things besides, their mental development. And so I appreciate that you said that. So I really want you to talk about how you even came to do this kind of work, because this is unique work. So how did you come to do this kind of work, and what are some of the primary issues you see in mother-daughter relationships that you handle, that you deal with?
Oh my goodness. You know what? You talk about boundaries and things like that. And this is a work in progress. I don't think it's ever done,
I
because the mother-daughter relationship it's such a rich relationship. It's such a fulfilling relationship. It's one of the most important relationships that we'll ever experience. Yeah, it's always evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always evolving. There's I don't know that there's ever an end to that relationship, because not even death ends that relationship, and the things that you're always learning and developing. I came to this work uh, because, again, as a licensed marriage and family therapist, we've had to dig, and it's hard to do the work unless we're reflecting and doing our own stuff.
Right.
Now to be honest, I'm still, working on my relationship with my mother. However, I got involved in this project to write a chapter for this book called Unchain My Legacy.
Yes.
And oh my goodness, it wasn't just putting 4,000 words on a piece of paper, let me tell you.
Oof, I can imagine.
Yes, I had to look at how I'm parenting, and I've had this in the back of my mind for a while. So this book was just a catalyst to help me work it out. Mm-hmm. And so I had to look at how I was parenting, and the things that I didn't like about how my mother parented. And then the harsh reality was finding out that I've passed on some of those things to my daughter. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Not intentionally. I mean, when I started being a mommy, I had a list, right? I had a list, and I said, right, this is not going to happen to mine. This is not going to happen to mine. This is not going to happen. Right. All these things. It's not going to happen to my daughter. She's going to know that her dark skin is beautiful. And so I dressed her, and I told her she was beautiful every single day. Mm-hmm. And she got that confidence, but there were other things that I wasn't aware of that seeped into our relationship. Mm. And that's where I had to do the work.
Right. It's interesting, because we always have that thought process that I'm never going to do this when it comes to my child. Yes. And, while, that may be something that individuals who have, like, I always go to indigenous societies and certain cultures that are very tight knit, right? So you see how they raise children, and you're like, okay, well, these things can happen in their communities because they have, mothers, aunties, grandmothers, all these people who are, have taken the time and have this similar view of parenting to assist you and guide you in parenting. And so, yeah, you could probably say, I'm never going to do this, because you have a community to support you in never doing that, right? Somebody to hold you accountable to never doing that. But what I found was that as a single parent, when I was a single parent anyway, even now as a married parent, the brunt of the burden often falls on the mother to do the work of parenting, which there's some good things behind that, and then there's some things behind that we need to release, right? But yeah, it's definitely, I went through the same process with my daughter. She literally followed some of my paths and my steps, and I had to really take this a look back, and I'm thankful that I'm able to do it now when she's younger, so that when she gets older there is a more robust conversation, because she is only 10, and this is work that I have been doing for the past like 5 years. And so yeah, it's very critical. We often think as parents about the very topical things when it comes to parenting, like having enough money, which we never have enough money anyway, because children are expensive. But we think about the topical things, how they're going to dress, what they're going to look like, what school they're going to go to. But there are some much deeper things, such as the connection. You were saying that mothers and daughters have this very deep connection because it's a spiritual connection. It's not just, it's not just, she
biological,
like, right, and what she looks like. It's literally a spiritual connection. So yeah,
it
so
really is. And one of the things that I would say also, Cecile, is that this transcends race. It's in every community. So yes, a lot of communities have more support and things like that. But even in those communities, there's still the struggle between mother-daughter.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
maybe on a different
you look
level.
in the immigrant, yes, you look in the immigrant community, because I serve a lot of immigrant families. And part of the struggle is around wanting better for your daughter, and how do you navigate this person that your daughter is becoming in America? That is a big, big, big struggle, and it causes a divide because, a lot of times you're parenting with fear.
Right. Oh my goodness. Can you let's expand on that, because I know I have been there. I probably still am there with the parenting with fear thing, right? Because it's like you want certain things to turn out. Like, for example, I'm a homeschooling parent. So, that's it's become more popular these days, but that's something that you think about, like, oh my gosh, am I preparing my child well enough? Or, if you're not doing, all the children are in certain kinds of programs and learning dance and STEM and all of these things. It's like, if I'm not doing that, am I failing as a parent? Like, or, if I'm not spanking them, for example, because I was raised getting spanked. So if I don't spank them, am I doing the right thing? There's all of these fearful questions. Yes. So anyway.
There are. And, some of the fears, the way I handle those fears, and I just had this conversation with my daughter on my talk show, Teen Talk Live. And we were talking about it, and I said, I had so many fears around parenting. And here's one of the biggest fears that I had. My fear was that if I shared with her some of the things that I was afraid of, or some of the things that I went through as a kid, it would impact her life in a negative way. And that was like listening to her tell me, Mom, no, that would help me understand you a lot better. And so that's something I wish I had the skills to be more transparent with my children. Like to say, no, I don't have you go on sleepovers because I'm afraid that you might get molested, like I was molested. Things like that. And just holding all of those fears in really perpetuated some of the things that I was trying to save them from.
Right,
Because
right.
what you focus on is what multiplies.
Right, right. In the way that you focus on it, right? Because as you said, you were coming from a fear-based situation. And in this universe, we have so many different possibilities of the way things can happen. And so it's like,
Yeah,
to think of things
yeah,
from a fear base is honest, is not rational, but that's the way that we've been trained to think.
that's exactly. And that's how we end up passing on some of these
Mhm,
things that we said we would never do
mhm,
because we're trying to hold it so close when it's happening. Different things are happening on the background, but we're so focused on these areas that we don't take time to be open, to be vulnerable,
mhm.
and even share our failures with our children. Some
Absolutely.
people do it and some people do it really well, but what happens when you've never learned to do that or you've never seen that modeled for you?
Right, exactly. And when is it appropriate? Right. So, your child is 5, 6, 7 years old. Can you say to them that, of course, I think that you can, of course, because open communication is the number one thing that I always say we need to do more intergenerationally.
Mhm.
Um, but that's not easy. Of course it's not easy, but you also have to be very age appropriate with what you say to your children,
Yeah,
because they're just hearing you say
yeah,
no, no, you're not doing that, but
right,
there is a reason
right.
behind it, okay. And then you have to think about, okay, well, have I had a conversation with my child about their agency over their bodies and no one being able to or having the right to touch them in a certain way? So all of
Right.
those things come to a head, and I think that that's something that that needs to be part of parenting classes. Like, it really
It
needs to
needs
be
to
a
be,
part of.
yeah, of
Yeah.
our it needs to be a part of our dialogues.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Because it's.
because it's that relationship with your daughter that, I mean, there, it has so many layers, and like you said, it's more than biological, it's spiritual,
Mhm.
right? And your daughter is looking to you because in her eyes you are the giant of the
Mhm.
world, you are the epitome of perfection,
Mhm.
you are what she wants to be. And
Mhm.
in a lot of cases, even if she doesn't want to be, she ends up modeling you, right? You are her model as her mom. And so, you have things like admiration, but you also have conflict and competition.
Yeah.
There are so many layers of complexities in that relationship,
Right. Right. Right.
and
And
we have to navigate it, in such a tender way that supports ourselves as the mom and also the growth of our child, our daughters.
right. Right. And that takes a lot of self-reflection, self-care, self-love. um, you know, these things are not separate from that. You have to really get to a point as a woman to know how to develop a good relationship with yourself and with other women, because it may not be you that has that conversation too, honestly. My daughter has a lot of aunties, and I'm like, listen, there's no way I could have every conversation that needs to be had. Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
there's no way. And so this is the power of the sisterhood as well, and the power of
Yes.
the community in assisting you with bringing these issues out. But I think the main thing is to not cover up any of these issues. Ask,
Yes.
ask your higher self how to broach the situation, but definitely hiding it or keeping it aside. Because I know, for example, there's things that my mother has never said to me, but I know that it exists. You know,
Exactly.
and so
Exactly.
her not saying it to me, I think, may add to, and not just for myself but for other women, when we know as children, because of our sensitivity to our mother's knowledge and spirit and things like that, we know that things exist but they're not telling us, and so we
Yeah.
feel a level of, I feel, betrayal, or a level of
Yeah.
like we're not important enough for this information to be shared with us, and that we could have not gone through certain things because, this information was shared with us by with our mothers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And, teenagers especially, are they're looking for loyalty. They're
Mhm.
looking for connections. And if they deem that, oh, my mom is being fake, you know,
Mhm.
that that just damages the relationship, and on so many levels, so
Mhm.
many levels. And then again, the mothers who taught us to have those conversations.
Right.
So that's why the sisterhood is that you spoke of is such an important entity in our lives, having that sisterhood. I remember right before my daughter got married. This was like 2 years ago. My daughter she's almost 29. And about 2 years ago, when she was getting ready to get married, she came home. And I think one of the best gifts that I could have given her was I called all my sister girlfriends. I called them my side by side sisters.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
took her out to lunch, and they poured into her,
Mhm.
as a community, as a village. And they just got her. And it was so beautiful.
Right.
It was very beautiful. And I think that was one of the best gifts that I could have given her, is the
Absolutely.
gift of the womanhood community.
I agree because it's like, when you're going through something, the most difficult thing is, who do I have to turn who's just going to understand, right? I don't necessarily need someone to
Right.
solve the issue, but someone who's just going to
Right.
listen to me so I don't feel like I'm going crazy in this situation, because that's what happens to a lot of people. They
Exactly.
feel so alone in whatever it is that is
Right.
happening with them. They're having
Right.
an issue that is quite regular in a marriage, but they never heard anybody talk about that issue. And so therefore,
Yes.
they don't know that
Right.
this is normal, and this is how we can, navigate that type
Yes.
situation. Um,
Right.
yeah. And so I can
And
agree
they
with that.
told her some stuff. They're like, yeah, you excited about getting married, girlfriend, but don't start nothing you're not gonna finish. Don't. I
Mhm.
mean, they got her
Gotta be
straight.
honest. Yeah. You gotta be honest. And that's
Uh-huh.
that level of honesty that we need to hear. And that's why I loved your conversation, where you asked the question, what would my 13-year-old self have wanted to know?
Oh,
It's like, you could ask that for every age or, age bracket. And be like, what would I
right.
have wanted to know about this
Right.
age group? Because that age group is, we know that can be tumultuous. It's teenage years, a lot of
It
hormonal
is.
changes. And yeah.
Yes.
And what
And
have you discovered?
13,
Mm-hmm.
yes, 13 is such a significant age.
Mm-hmm.
Both physically, developmentally, emotionally. 13 is one of those ages that it's a pivotal point in your life. And I wrote about this in my chapter in Unchain My Legacy, where I started the conversation with my daughter by saying, what do you wish you knew at 13?
Mm-hmm.
And it so happened that she had her 13-year-old journal next to her. Now she's almost 29. How you have your journal right next to you, right? And she went through and she read it.
Mm-hmm.
And I included excerpts of that in the chapter. And she read it, and the amazing thing about it was her conclusion about what she wished she knew at 13 was also my conclusion
Wow.
about what
Wow.
I wish I knew at 13. Right. And so I've been asking this question across the world. I travel and I do work in West Africa, and I've been asking women the same question. And one woman told me, she said, I wish I knew what it felt like to be loved, truly loved by a man,
Mm,
because then I wouldn't have spent the rest of my life trying to find it.
Oh, child. See, that's a whole nother show right there.
See,
That's a
see,
whole other show. And
yes. And
because
there were,
that
I feel like, oh, there were, I mean, there were so, I mean, so real, because that question takes people to, it's almost hypnotizing,
it
and it
is.
takes you into a reflective place
Yes.
that, you don't know what's going to come out.
Right. Right, right. It's that is so powerful. And in all that I have done myself, I've come to realize that it all comes down to the level of love for self that is poured into a young person.
Absolutely.
That's what it all comes down
Absolutely.
to. It's, we
Absolutely.
think that when we have children that everything that we do with them is about making them conform to what is okay.
Yes.
Our society and our family
Right.
and the truth of the matter is it's really about them learning to love who they are at that particular moment in time and letting them evolve themselves just like we needed to do when we were younger. But of course we didn't have that
Exactly.
opportunity, unfortunately, just because of the way that life was. Now things are changing, right? Now young people, I feel anyway, are getting the opportunity to express themselves, to explore
Right.
ideas around what love actually is from the opposite sex or within their families, and redefining these things. And I think, and I'm thankful for that I see that happening. We have to allow them to be free, and a lot of times they'll be doing something, it's nothing harmful, but you'll see them like try to change what they're doing when an adult comes around, and I'm like, and I'm always like, no, you have to be free, be you, go ahead and do dance or whatever you want to do. It's not because that's letting me know who you actually are, and being able to accommodate you and talk to you around those things in a way that's going to guide you in to be your best self. But if you're hiding and doing something that is not what you actually want to do, then I'm not actually going to be able to guide you and what you need at all.
Yeah.
Right.
That is so true. And then there is the segment of the population of young people who are misguided. They have no guidance because
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, mom is disconnected. And mom
Mm-hmm.
is trying to figure out some things herself. So I've worked in the school systems for over 25 years. And in the last 5 years, I've worked as a school-based mental health therapist.
Okay.
And so I get to see the young girls try to find identity
Mm-hmm.
and gravitate to anything that will help them to feel emotionally, because we've been emotionally shut down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I find one of the biggest things that I have to teach them is about emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And that's something that I didn't teach my children well enough in my reflection. I didn't know about, but I see my grandkids and they're doing such a good job teaching my grandkids, emotional language, and teaching them how to express themselves and have that appreciation. But I'm looking at these young girls and I'm telling you, they have two emotions. I'm mad,
Mm-hmm.
or angry. Everything is angry. I'm angry or I'm angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like everything goes to angry, right? And so sitting there with them in a room with a chart to say, well, tell me about that. When you started to feel angry, what happened right before that? And could it have been that you were disappointed?
Mm-hmm.
But they've never learned how to experience
Right.
or express things other than anger, because anger is such a not acceptable, and in the other words, expected emotion and reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are losing a segment of our society by not giving our teens those skills.
Right.
And one of the things that I'm noticing, and I've noticed and brought attention to, is what they'll end up doing is they'll create their own family system in
Yes.
middle school.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, that's my day one, that's my baby mama, that's my baby daddy. You
Yes.
know, they have labels and
Yes.
roles
Mm-hmm.
for the people who they believe is close to them, and they create their own family system.
Yep, that is absolutely true. That is absolutely, and look, they're creating a family system with people who are in the same boat as them, right? And so it's like, okay, where's the
Exactly.
ability to grow? Where's the ability to grow? And I love that you said what you said about the emotional intelligence and our ability to really teach our children how to access and be okay with the different emotions that they feel, of course, but everything doesn't have to be reacted to. Right. Sometimes
Right.
things can just be sat with, and then it is just a teaching point on what it is that you need to learn about yourself. So if something
Right.
disappointed you, you understand that you don't like that thing, right? Or that thing is not something that you want to experience anymore. And that's okay. That's part of life. We all do that every
Yeah.
day, right?
Yes.
We do that every
Right.
single day. Like if you take a bite of food and you don't like that food, you're not going to be mad at the food. You're just going to be like, listen, I ain't never
No,
buying this food again,
I'm
right?
not doing that again.
I'm not eating.
Right. I'm not doing that one again.
And that's it,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And it's
Mhm.
but I think that when your experiences growing up or as a child is colored with um, disappointment after disappointment and failure after failure, and no one is there to say, it's okay. People are only
Mhm.
giving you the option of pushing down your feelings. This is how the explosions
Right.
and these things happen. So it's
And that
critical
is
even from
so
a young
true.
age. Yeah, even from a very young
It,
age, because I work with even smaller
it
children.
really is.
And yeah, and it starts there. It starts there. I
Right.
had a young girl who would always say, I'm angry. I'm like, you're angry? She was so young. She was like 6, 7. I said, are you disappointed about something? Are you confused that something happened and you thought that something else would happen? Or, give me some specifics here. What's actually going on? Because
Right.
being angry,
Right.
I don't know. You seem like you're gonna make
Right.
it. You seem like you're gonna make it.
Yes.
Like everything's gonna be all right. We just gotta figure out what's actually going on here. So I can totally feel you on that. I do nannying. I'm a nanny. Um, at
Hmm.
this time, and so yeah, I get to experience different age levels and such, and see how
Right.
they function and operate. So I love
So
that you
that's
said that.
the difference, though, in learning how to communicate and promoting that emotional intelligence. Because I remember growing up. I mean, I if I said I was angry, it was like, go sit down somewhere. You know
Right.
what you got to be angry about? You got food to eat. You got clothes to wear. You got a bed to sleep in. You understand what I mean? So it's just shut down, and you never really learned how to explore that. And what you just gave was an excellent example of how to dig a little deeper and give them a range of
Right.
emotions to
Right.
pull from.
Right.
Yes, I love it. I
And
really love that.
you have to think about your own emotions. Again, always has to go back to you as the adult. How are you taking care of yourself?
Right.
Because as adults, oftentimes we are not given the space either, because it's just unfortunately the society that we live in, sometimes we're not given the space, especially as women, oftentimes as Black women, because we're seen as the strong ones and the ones who don't shouldn't have to complain about
Right.
anything. And
Right.
so are we giving ourselves the permission to feel what it is we feel, and really get in touch with what
Right.
what we're actually feeling, and how what we
Feeling.
need. I just had this experience recently. I was talking to my husband and family. I was like, we need to move out of this state. This place is getting on my nerves. I had this whole breakdown. And then I was like,
Oh,
Cecile, you are being so irrational right now. What is really going on here? And so I came to discover that I was not experiencing my life the way that I need to experience it. So I wasn't traveling enough. I'm a traveler, right? I've traveled a lot, and I
wow.
and I want to. So, but the past like 2 years, I haven't traveled nearly enough, and so I was like, you know what? That's probably what it is. I haven't been going anywhere, and so I need to.
Yeah.
I need to go more places in order to feel like, I'm doing something with my life, because that's my way to take care of myself. I have to
Right.
travel and do those things, and so
Right.
again,
You
we
have to
have to.
feed your spirit.
Exactly. And we have to know what that is. And I think that's great to know for ourselves, because then we can understand what it is our children need. We can ask
Absolutely.
questions around what they need. What is actually going on? Is it
Absolutely.
knowing them and observing them? Do you need to like go outside and run around, or do you need to go,
Mhm.
what is it that you actually need in this moment? Or do you need to go to sleep?
Right. Exactly. Yes. Because I
Yeah.
know when my daughter gets crabby, I'm like, oh, you haven't had a nap. And she's 29.
Hmm.
I'm like, no, you didn't sleep well last night. Let me come back later.
Listen, naps are good. Do you hear me?
Yes.
They are
Yes.
necessary
Yes.
for functioning in life. Okay. So,
Yes. Hashtag.
so I, so I have to say that one of the things that I deal with, or that I have observed a lot, is that a lot of us as adults need to go back, and we talked about this already, but we need to go back and really reconnect with our inner child, and
Yes.
really heal around our inner child for whatever thing that we are going through um, can really be resolved. We need to
Right.
go back to that age and that stage of wherever some kind of trauma happened, so that we can find ways to reconcile within ourselves. So I wanted you to talk about that
Absolutely.
a little bit in context of healing the mother-daughter relationship, and really understanding how to observe certain behaviors and such, perhaps, or
Right.
what is your take on that?
That's so funny that you would ask that, because in the chapter I also explore that from a therapeutic standpoint. And there is this therapeutic model called contextual family therapy.
Mm,
And the premise of this is that we give to our children what have been given to us
mm,
as an effort to balance our ledgers, our emotional ledgers.
mhm.
That we well, first of all, the premise is we're all born with a ledger,
Okay.
right? And we give what has been given to us. But the other side of it is we also take away from our next generation what have been taken away from us in effort to balance that ledger. So
Interesting. Mhm.
yes, and this is what I want to get the word out about. Okay, so when we use the term generational curses,
Mhm.
that kind of puts the onus on somebody else and gives the implication that you really can't do nothing about it because this is generation. Big mama did it, mama did it, grandmama did it, and but the reality is, what we call generational curses, those are just behavioral patterns that we keep repeating
Yes.
over and over. And we pass it on to our daughters, and they pass it on to their daughters, and things like that, in an effort to balance an emotional ledger.
Right, right. And so the question is, how do you break out of it? How do
And
you break away from those generational curses? I know through intentionality, number one, because right,
right,
because when you're on that autopilot, because the inner child is the subconscious, things that we just do without even thinking about it. In some cases, some of those things are great. If you get up in the morning 5
right.
a.m. and go exercise, you're doing something great. But if you are
Mhm,
automatically just eating a bag of potato chips, or eating thing or doing things that are unhealthy, or that are not pushing
mhm.
you towards being better, then then we need to look at that more deeply. So again.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And you said a bag of potato chips. It is something my daughter and I talked about, because that's how I dealt with emotions. I ate, and I was an emotional eater, and I passed that on to her,
Right.
you know, that emotional eating habit. And so even to one, you have to bring some kind of awareness to
Mhm.
it. And you have to want to make a difference. You have to want to change. And sometimes we don't know, or we don't want to change because changing is harder and it
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of deep work,
Yes.
right? And another reason why people don't want to change is because in some instances they haven't seen anything better modeled for them.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
Right. And it
So,
can be a
so right.
challenge. It can be a
Yes,
challenge when you're around, like, I remember when I was a vegan and vegetarian, everybody in my family was like, but you grew up eating, you know, all of this stuff. Family is from the
exactly.
Caribbean, so, they eat all kinds of stuff. And I was like, I just simply don't want to eat that right now. I just don't. My body
I
doesn't feel it,
know.
you
Talk
know.
about being from the Caribbean. When I stopped eating fried dumplings, my mother was like, "What? But you grew up eating
Blasphemy, right?
right?"
That's blasphemous. You hear me?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But I tell you, exposing ourselves to things that are different or people who are different really helps us. And informing your own village
Mhm.
really helps you in your journey to encourage you to doing something different
Absolutely.
and healing those parts,
Right.
because a lot of this I didn't realize or understood till I went to grad school,
Right. Right. Right.
and so sometimes it feels like I'm working backwards, but the best place to start is where you are, and so that's what I decided to do.
That's it.
Start where I am.
That's it. And often, a lot of times, I won't say, well, sometimes, when you start making certain changes and people see that you have made those changes, they'll start to
Mm-hmm.
follow along in the family in any way that they
Exactly.
can, anyway. Right. So, my having
Right.
lost weight and just being in a healthier place, period, has really shifted the mentality of my mom and, of course, of my daughter and other people in the family about what it is to be healthy, you know,
Right.
or what it is to just live differently in terms of the way you think about yourself and you see yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So it
Absolutely.
has dividends. It pays dividends. You'll be taxed a little bit in the beginning,
Sometimes slowly,
very
sometimes
slowly.
slowly.
Yes, it
But
can be
if
very
you,
slow.
yes, but you have to think about it long term. This is for my legacy.
Right, right.
This is a legacy journey. So it might not impact those directly related right now, but you're setting the precedence for your future generations.
Right. And somebody has to be the person in the family that the stories are told about who did something different. Right. And that's how that has a ripple
Yeah,
effect in your family and in your legacy. So absolutely.
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 I just want to talk about some ways, some steps that daughters of estranged mothers or vice versa can rebuild their relationships, right? Because there's situations where it may or may not even be possible to rebuild those relationships because there are some things in
Right.
your practice. You may have heard some horrific stories of things that happen in those relationships, and I know I've heard a lot myself.
Yes.
And so, how does a daughter deal with that feeling of disconnection? Because again, not being close to your mother it can leave you feeling very empty, you know,
Yes. Yes. In all areas of your life.
and all.
In
Yes. Hmm.
all areas. Right. And so acknowledging, first of all, to me is the number one thing in deciding what it is that you want. If you were to have the ideal relationship with your mom, what would that look like?
Hmm.
And realistically looking at that to see, is it possible?
Mm.
Because for some people it's not possible, because let's say, for example, I have a lot of friends whose moms have mental illnesses or have some kind of addiction and they're absent, and so in that case something like that isn't possible right now,
Hmm.
right? Another thing that I talk about in the chapter that I wrote is to know that because you want it doesn't necessarily mean that it's time for that other person. So respecting their time factor is very important. And not just dumping on them, but to investigate and see if this is the time to build that relationship and build that connection. The third thing that I would say is some people might never find the time. Again, that directly correlates with the number one thing. They might not have the ability, but some people might never find the time. They might never they might never have the willingness even to do that. I remember one of my supervisors telling me a couple of weeks ago, she's like, her mom passed before they were able to reconcile on that level. Right. And she has to navigate her mom's voices in her head and make peace with that. So you might not be able to do it physically, right? But emotionally, you can work through that. Right. And the last thing I'll say about that is sometimes we need help along this journey. And so finding accountability partner or a strong therapist to help you walk through this journey is really, really critical, because you don't have to do it alone, and there might be painful things that you will relive, and that's probably some of the reasons why there's that estrangement in the first place. So reliving those painful things, having somebody equipped and qualified to help you walk through that can really save you some detriment.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely
yes.
that therapy around that is very, very important, because one, the professional assistance will help to validate your feelings, because I know, again, when I was going through this, I didn't really talk to many people about it, because people, what people say when you say anything about this issue of having issues with your mom, they'll be like, well, that's your mom, or that's the conversation that right. And so that's not helpful,
get
though.
shut down right away.
Right.
Mama girl, that's your mama. She brought you in this world. You should be forever grateful. Right. Yes, I am. And I want something else and something more.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's okay to say. That's okay to feel that way. It's okay. And it takes a long time. It's not something that's quick, as you said, because you continue to become re-triggered. It takes time to heal this thing. It's definitely not something that you can rush through at all. Most healing you can't rush through. But this is going to probably take years. Again, that connection between mothers and daughters that is beyond the physical, it really can affect you in some very strong ways. And because I'm a holistic practitioner and I deal more so with things like your chakra system and your subconscious mind and things like that, I usually give my clients the ability to use those tools to assist them in their process. But I wanted you to talk a little bit more about before we wrap up here, I want you to talk a little bit more about your book and about any other projects that you have going on, how people can contact you. I know your book is on pre-order. I look forward to getting a copy. And tell us some more about that.
Well, the book is coming out. It's an anthology with 11 other amazing women and myself, and we share our stories, and we're all from different walks of life. These are all Black women also, who share their strength and their hope, and they share about deep things, emotional things, but they also share about restoration, grace, forgiveness. In my chapter, I talk about my daughter, my experience with my daughter, and passing on some of those emotional debt that I spoke of to her, And one example is watching her gain weight and remembering the embarrassment, the failure that I felt around that, because I was of such a large weight myself, and end up passing on the emotional eating piece to her. However, has given us so much grace. She has given me grace.
Right.
And we have restored that relationship. We had to, dig deep into that. So that's coming out, and that book can be ordered at ann.unchainmylegacy.com. And it promises, it's more than a book. It really is a manual, because at the end of each chapter, you'll find awarenesses, you'll find tips, you'll find steps and examples to help you in your process of unchaining. And so that's really good. On Monday nights, I'm the host of Teen Talk Live on Facebook under Ann Dillard. And so for May and June, those months, we worked on, or are working on, mother-daughter relationships. Yes. Yes. And I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist, licensed in the states of Minnesota and Georgia. And my primary client are teenagers. And I love females, preferably females. I do serve other populations, but I do serve females because, again, part of that is what I do well, is helping to heal the mother-daughter relationship.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. The show, your Teen Talk show is so fabulous. It's just open and real and raw, and I love it. I watched the episode with you and your daughter, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope she wants to, be on my podcast, and here you are. Thank you. Because this is such critical information. I mean, it's so critical. It will save us a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of wasted mental energy, so that we can enjoy the parenting, the mother-daughter relationship. It can be so enjoyable. Exactly. It could be so fruitful.
Exactly.
If we move out.
Look, and part of it is selfish too, because I don't want her to keep me away from my grandkids.
No, but they need you. Your grandchildren need you.
Yeah.
Right. So
and
it's
they need
still
a healthy me.
Exactly. So it's like the work is not easy, but it's so worth it on so many levels.
Worth it.
So worth it.
It's so worth it.
So I thank you so much for doing that work, and I look forward to sharing out this and people listening to this and you getting feedback. How can people contact you? Via email or any way if they want to work with you? Or
email. My website is anndillard.com. www.anndillard.com. On social media, Ann Dillard. On Instagram, I'm Miss Ann. LinkedIn, I'm on all the social media platforms, Ann Dillard LMFT. YouTube, Ann Dillard LMFT. And so people can do that. And my phone number is 763-228-9757. And just look me up, and I would be happy to engage with anyone.
Absolutely. And that's Ann without an E, ANN only. Right? Just so y'all are clear. Okay. Well, I want you to make a mistake when you go to buy the book and to hook up with Miss Ann.
No.
Now she's going to
not Annie Dillard. No, not Annie Dillard.
Ann.
Without an E.
Just so we're clear, okay? Because I want the pathway to be clear for people to get what they need from you and your expertise, and perhaps even sending their own daughters over to you to get that understanding and that love and that experience that is needed. It's so needed. And I am so thankful and grateful for you and joining us. And if there's any last minute thing that you want to say or any words of wisdom, feel free.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Cecile, for this opportunity. This is really, it's becoming, it's more of a taboo conversation to, again, to have why, this your mama? kind of thing. And we need to continue these conversations. I did forget to say that I am starting a membership group in June. It's called I Love My Daughter But. And so
Ooh, I
in
can't wait.
that forum, it's going to
Yes.
be for, mothers, daughters who want to navigate this relationship, and offering from my personal experience along with therapeutic interventions to help navigate this very important, critical relationship. And I just want to tell everybody, it's hard work, but it's worth it. It really is worth it. And so give it a try. Give it a try.
Thank you so much. And with that said, thank you for joining us for the Mommy Matters podcast. And I look forward to having more conversations with you about Mommy Matters and what matters to mommy. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace. Did you like that? I know it was as informative for you as it was for me. Look, this is a process for all of us. And to keep this process going, I would love to invite you to donate to our podcast. We want to continue to give you high-level content, beautiful content that enlightens and inspires and broadens your vision to elevate you and evolve. So please feel free to go to the podcast page at anchor.fm/Mommy Matters. We would love to hear your questions and comments as well, so that we can discuss them in future podcasts. And you can email that to momevolve@gmail.com. You can also visit the website and send your comments there. www.mommyevolve.com. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Peace and love.